fighters with his books, The Legend of Birsa Munda, The Great Tribal Warriors of Bharat, and Siddhartha. Tuhin's books traverse a wide range of subjects across fiction and non-fiction genres. On the other hand, we have Aditya Pittie. He is an experienced entrepreneur and an angel investor with interests in politics, public policy, and nation building. He holds a BS Engineering degree from University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, USA, and a Master's MBA degree from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Cambridge. Aditya is also a mentor for Atal Innovation Mission, Government of India, past president of the Entrepreneurs Organization, Tuhin, and convener of the BJP Intellectual Cell. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a big round of applause.
Namaste, good afternoon everybody. So as you can see, the book Modi's Northeast Story, it's an anthology where 23 different authors who have been directly involved with the transformation of northeastern states in the last 10 years have contributed their essays. We, Aditya and I, have curated the book, we have edited the book, and also the first chapter, the introduction chapter, is written by us. So these contributors include the who's who, people who have been directly involved at the forefront of initiating or executing the changes, governance changes, which our northeastern states have witnessed in the last nine and a half or 10 years. The first chapter is by Assam CM, Honorable Assam CM Himanta Biswa Sharma-ji. The second chapter is by Union Minister for Earth Sciences, Kiran Rijiju. The third chapter is by Pema Khandu-ji, the CM of Arunachal Pradesh. But we have tried to include a wide group of people that includes entrepreneurs. There are 3 entrepreneurs who have written chapters. One from Manipur, a lady from Arunachal Pradesh, Tage Rita. She owns a winery, an organic winery in one of the remote areas of Arunachal Pradesh. There are 2 other people who have written, who have co-authored a chapter on entrepreneurship development in the Northeast. We have 2 members of parliament, 3 members of parliament, Raju Bista, Bangalore, Konyak, and Tejasvi Surya, she was also the BJP president. A couple of journalists, Karma Palajor, who heads a portal in the Northeast. So, before we proceed further, I'm sure, the people present here, the potential readers present here would be invested or would be interested in the Northeast for your interest in the book. Now, why did we decide to broach, or why did we decide to, write this book or curate this book or put this book together? Unfortunately, for many decades post our independence, we had unequal growth where some areas, some states were repeatedly lagging behind decades after decades, and a lot of it was because of the rigid mindset that was seen in governance in the early years post our independence. So it used to be called our attitude towards the northeastern states was best summed up in the words tyranny of distance. The initial governments post-independence would invariably think it's so far away from Delhi that it's better that things don't get reported, that if they get reported there will be a lot of headache and there will be a lot of extra work for the central government. And this went on for many years. So like many of you would be aware, during 1962, in the 1962 war, certain parts of Arunachal Pradesh, present Arunachal Pradesh did not exist at that point of time. It was part of northeast frontier states. There was Arunachal Pradesh was not a separate state at that point of time. Certain parts of Arunachal, when they were intruded by Chinese, the then Prime Minister had a very callous attitude when he says, "My heart goes out to the people of the Northeast," which was interpreted very, it was not taken well by the people of Northeast, and that only further kind of aggravated the distance, the emotional distance that was there, the skepticism that was there for the central leadership. So, I think the first real attempt towards correcting this imbalance was done by the Vajpayee government in 1998, between 1998 to 2004. A whole lot of infrastructure projects were initiated. But then after the government was voted out of power in 2004, again for the next 10 years, between 2004 to 2014, not much development was seen in the Northeast. So, when we talk about the positive changes that have come about in northeastern states, what we are talking about is 4 lakh crores of capital expenditure. What that means is seamless connectivity across the northeastern states to any of the remote corners. So for example, if you land up in Guwahati, 10 years ago probably going from Guwahati to one of the remote corners of Arunachal Pradesh would take you 2.5 days. Now you can reach there barely in a few hours. That is the kind of seamless connectivity that this capital expenditure, this immense and this humongous capital expenditure has resulted in the last 9.5 years. From 8 functional airports, we have 17 airports today in the Northeast. In fact, Arunachal has 3 airports, and many of the flights to Arunachal start from Guwahati. They are smaller flights, so that is the level of connectivity, the seamless connectivity the northeastern states are witnessing. Now when we bridge this distance, the emotional distance also gets covered. You would recall that till about 10 years ago, many of our northeastern brothers and sisters who would come to Delhi were often, there was a racial term that was used for them by certain groups of people. Now you would see that receding, or you would see that ending, because obviously, the connectivity has brought about greater number of northeastern people to metros and vice versa. In fact, there are many stories of people who had migrated out of northeastern states to Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore in the last 15 years. Now they wish to go back because that is the kind of opportunities which are being generated. So all of these needed to be documented, all of these needed to be chronicled, because today the northeastern states have a GDP of about 7 lakh crore. And the GDP is to the tune of 7 lakh crore. 10 years ago, it was less than 2 lakh crore. So you can see the kind of the humongous increase which is taking place. And today that is just the beginning. That has just opened up multiple other avenues going ahead. Tourism footfalls have increased exponentially. How did that happen? This is the book that tells you the behind the scenes story of the thought process of the present government at the center of the key initiators of the change in northeastern states. And obviously Himanta Biswa Sharma ji, Kiran Rijiju ji, Pema Khandu ji have played a very key role in the execution of many of the government programs. One of the chapters is on the health infrastructure of the Northeast. Now during COVID, many of the people had assumed that COVID vaccination in the hilly regions of Nagaland or Arunachal would be extremely difficult. But we made sure that 100% vaccination was achieved, and in some of the areas. In fact, drones were used to ensure that the vaccines reached the far-flung areas. So that is the level of commitment that the present government has shown to the development of these northeastern regions. So I think before taking much time, I would just request my co-author Aditya Pittie to take over, and probably from a business point of view or from an entrepreneurial point of view, since he is an entrepreneur, if he could enlighten how he sees the growing opportunities in Northeast and how that could attract further investment in the years to come.
Thanks, Tuhin. Building upon what Tuhin said, when we envisaged this project of this book, it also started from an idea of kind of debating what are, say, the top 5 achievements of the Modi government in the past 9 years. When we spoke about this last year. definitely the development of Northeast was amongst the top 5. However, when we thought about it, very less was known about exactly what has happened aside from the top news headline that there has been big development in the Northeast. So we realized that this is a very compelling as well as an important story to document facts, because as Tuhin ji gave a broad overview, the enabling foundation of development has been made there, infrastructure, connectivity, etc. And I think now is the time to build upon that framework and that foundation to bring businesses, services into the region, not only for the overall development of India, but for the real development of that region, increasing the GDP further and improving the lives of the people there. So kind of that was the motivation there. The work that's happened there is striking. We took a number of tours there in the Northeast region, and reading it about in a book is very different from seeing it in real life. Whether it's the Bhupen Hazarika Bridge in Assam, which is a 9.1 kilometer bridge across the Brahmaputra River, seeing is believing. It's actually shocking to see the development that's happened. Some of the other things there is also the top educational institutions that have come in. There is an IIM in Shillong, there is an IIT in Guwahati, huge development of the medical infrastructure. There are 10 medical colleges and an AIMS in Guwahati now. It all comes about by a commitment of top leadership. I was shocked to read and actually check this fact that Prime Minister Modi ji has visited the Northeast 60 times, 60, since becoming the Prime Minister of the country, versus many of the previous Prime Ministers who've never been there before. They used to have something called a Look East policy, which Modi ji changed to Act East, and in fact now he's talking about Act Fast for Northeast and Act First for Northeast. So there's a lot of things happening. I think connectivity has been the game changer. It's also cultural integration back into India. I believe that the national anthem was played in the Nagaland Assembly for the first time. I also read a news article just this morning that Arunachal Pradesh has achieved 100% Jal Jeevan water tap connectivity, which is an amazing for a state as complex as that one. I also, in the essays it comes out, Pema Khanduji talks about how a remote village in Arunachal Pradesh called Tali, T-A-L-I, which was established in 1957, was connected by the first time by a road after 60 years. And that was done under his government. Ashish Chandorkar, who's talked about the vaccine initiative in the Northeast, writes about a very interesting anecdote where a made in India unmanned unmanned aircraft was delivering vaccines in remote areas of Manipur, in Tarang Island and some Loktak Lake, first time. So there's lots of things happening, and that is what really motivated us to document this story.
As young readers and people who are inquisitive about the Northeast, I'm sure many of you, before you toss the question to us about what's happening in Manipur, let me be very candid about you. The book has answers to many of your questions. So there is an exhaustive chapter from anthropologist Rami Desai. The chapter headline is From Conflict to Peace, the Role of Political Will. So while yes, what has happened in Manipur in the last 8 months is extremely unfortunate, the history of ethnic conflicts in the northeastern states needs to be understood. And in fact, most of these disputes, 80% of these disputes have been diligently and rigorously resolved through dialogue. That includes some of the border disputes that were existing between Assam and Arunachal Pradesh and Assam and Meghalaya and other states. Similarly, there is another chapter in the book by Indologist Dr. Ankita Datta, which talks about the demographic war which Assam has faced in the last many decades through illegal migration from Bangladesh, and how for the first time under Himanta Biswa Sharma a plan is being put in place, because honestly if you kind of look away, if you are dismissive of the problem of illegal migration, which is a big problem in many states, not just in Assam but even in Bengal, which is not a part of the Northeast, I think these problems needed to be addressed. The same way that Pakistan-sponsored terrorism had to be addressed, which this government did. So eventually, it's a story of political will, but it transcends many other zones. There are two young students there are two ex-students in fact, who were studying in IIM Shillong about 6-7 years ago. One of them subsequently worked as a officer in special duty with our finance minister Nirmala Sitharamanji. The other is working with the Assam government. Both of them have written about their personal journey of seeing the transformation in IIM Shillong and across Assam and Shillong over the last 7 or 8 years, since the time they first joined the institution in 2015-2016. And Pradeep Bhandari, who many of you know, a cephalogist, a very aggressive and a very passionate cephalogist who travels to possibly every constituency before the elections, he has written an extensive chapter on decoding the voting patterns of the northeastern states. So that's what makes it a very eclectic, a very diverse combination. Because I remember 10 years ago, the northeastern states, there were certain things which were, there were certain myths, or there were certain things which they were propagated about, that the BJP can never expand to northeastern states, it can never expand into Tamil Nadu, it can never expand into Bengal. Now, so far as northeastern states are concerned, I think almost every state, barring Meghalaya right now, the BJP has a government. And and even in Meghalaya, it's a coalition government where we have a minister right now. But like Aditya ji was mentioning, the important points to understand is that in a hilly zone like Nagaland, in a hilly zone like Arunachal Pradesh, if 80% plus success can be achieved as of today in real time, when it comes to ensuring tap water connections, I think the commitment to upliftment of lives in the northeastern states has been enormous. And that's what makes the key difference. The same applies to Mudra loans. In fact, there is one chapter written by a gentleman who runs a company which works exclusively on increasing financial inclusion. And like I mentioned, there are 3 very interesting chapters of entrepreneurship, one of which is written by Tage Rita. Tage Rita is an agricultural engineer who quit her job, went to her roots in one of the remote areas of Arunachal Pradesh near Anini, and she set up a winery, an organic winery, which today supplies wines, of which today has customers across the globe. So while she has talked about her entrepreneurial journey, she has also been very candid to explain how government initiatives, both from the central government and the state government, provided the right encouragement to entrepreneurs. So I think these are stories which were waiting to be told, which had to be told, and I'm glad that we got this opportunity to tell the story. It's an anthology which should be referred to as a case study many years down the line, because the kind of commitment that has gone towards uplifting of these states, they are not purely, this model of development can be replicated to any other part across the world. Many of you would be aware of the term Antodaya. Antodaya is about the last person in the queue getting the first access to the resources. Now we have extended that to regions which were left behind, which includes Ladakh, which includes northeastern states, and probably in the time to come that may include Lakshadweep. they will be at par with, they will enjoy facilities which are at par with the best of the, or the most advanced states. I think that is the idea with which the present government has worked.
I think I'll just make one or two additional comments. What I found interesting about this development was, the region was developed while embracing the region's rich culture, language and traditions. There are a number of, excellent cultural festivals in the Northeast. Thanks to the connectivity, both air and rail, there's been now a record number of both foreign and domestic tourists coming in there. Nagaland is very rightly called the Switzerland of the East. We've traveled extensively, I can attest to that. So I think this has been very important, that how this area was developed while keeping the culture, tradition, language in mind. Another thing, as a business person, what fascinated me is, I think the development of the Northeast was, like a greenfield project in some sense. And it gives a good insight into the development model and transformation strategy of Prime Minister Modi. And I honestly believe that, it can serve as a template for development in a lot of the other newer regions which they are looking to develop. Thanks.
So in fact, I'm sure many of you would be aware of the proposed road connectivity right up to, from India right up to Bangkok. And that would obviously pass through the heart of Myanmar. In fact, that has huge geopolitical implications, but like I said, instead of worrying about those ramifications, this is a government which believes in management terms. There is a term called bag approach, big, hairy, audacious goal. You set up huge targets without worrying about the consequences, and you kind of set up an agenda which is far too huge or far in excess of what that region may have ever imagined. And the fruits of it are visible not just to the Northeast, but I think the advantages are visible to the entire world. So I think without taking much time, we'd like to quickly open this up and would look forward to your questions.
सर, एक तो नागा अकॉर्ड के बारे में कि नागा अकॉर्ड अभी तक एग्जिस्टेंस में नहीं आया, बट हम न्यूज़पेपर में सुन रहे हैं कि नागा अकॉर्ड की बातचीत चल रही है. और सेकंड थिंग कि मणिपुर में अब जो कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस चल रहे हैं उस पर थोड़ी सी क्रिटिसिज्म हो रही है, उस पर आपका क्या मानना है? मणिपुर
नागा कोड की बात चल रही है, जब बात तो बहुत सारी चीजों की चलती है. जब
नहीं सर, न्यूज़पेपर में काफी कुछ नागा अकॉर्ड के बारे में आ चुका है, बट फाइनलाइज नहीं हो पाया अभी तक. 10 साल
जो चीज फाइनलाइज नहीं हो पाई उसके बारे में बात करके क्या लाभ है?
और सेकंड
देखिए मणिपुर का, you need to understand that chapter is very important where Rami Desai has talked about the history of conflicts. Now, between March 2017 and April 2023, the more than 6 year phase, is also perhaps the most peaceful and the most progressive phase that the state has witnessed. But there are clearly shadows from the past. There are clearly, certain dark shadows from the past, which we thought we could wipe out completely, which have erupted again.
But what
a lot of it has got to do, let me say this with responsibility, a lot of it has got to do with the illegal poppy cultivation which was happening in the hills, against which the present government over there was very aggressive. A lot of it has got to do with foreign powers, and like I said, a lot of it has got to do with the fact that this seamless road connectivity would have unsettled the plans of China in Myanmar. So beyond this, there are issues which it may not, the situation is still sensitive, it may not be viable for me to speak in detail, but I can tell you that in the next few months, a lot of it will be a thing of the past. clearly, if you look at the history of ethnic conflicts in Manipur in the past, there have been episodes or there have been phases of prolonged violence. Unfortunately, this is one of it. This will not be able to succeed. This present phase will not be able to unsettle the development efforts which have happened, and which is why from Manipur, instead of having a political voice, we have a very successful entrepreneur called Niranjan, who has been working to skill the
And Olympian also. We have Olympian from Manipur, Mirabai Chanulai.
Yeah, but all of them may, we also have our limitations. A lot of them may not be, passionate about writing or may not. So Manipur has always been, it has a very rich history it has a rich contribution to India's freedom movement. There have been.
And about Arunachal Pradesh, some people are talking China is making villages and occupying our territory in Arunachal.
If you don't believe politicians, you should believe the Indian Army.
Yeah.
The Indian Army has categorically stated with facts that no fresh, encroachment of land has taken place after 2014. On the contrary, one of the chapters, and like I said, whatever your questions, perhaps most of the questions will have answers in these chapters. On the contrary, the Vibrant Village program which has been initiated, that is going to be a game changer because the bordermost villages, and Kiran Rijiju will be the first fortress, the first centers of development. So if you go to travel to the northeastern borders today, places maybe 50 kilometers ahead of Tawang, you will see the best 5G connectivity. Why? Because the army is able to communicate the incursion or potential incursion at the earliest, which gives a lot of time for the government to respond adequately, which is how we have responded and, neutralized the Chinese forces on at least 3 or 4 occasions in the last 3 or 4 years.
But some MPs of the ruling party are saying this, that China is occupying and has occupied some places.
Which MPs?
I am not recalling their name, but there is one of the MP of BJP.
Unless you are confused between the ruling party and opposition.
No, sir. Ruling party.
Because, the people who take dictations from I forget the name, Morning Times in Beijing, they always, every time we give it back to the Chinese forces, they say our soldiers are bleeding.
Okay, thank you.
कहीं हिसाब किताब है कितनी पॉपी कितना चरस उगाते थे ये पार और फिर इधर कितना कहीं है उसका डेटा
इलीगल चीजें उसका डेटा इसको बस खत्म किया जाता है तो वो सारे इफेक्ट्स
नहीं ऐसा तो आ सकता है ऐसी कोई बात नहीं
इलीगल मनी का मतलब हमारे पास जो गवर्नमेंट का डेटा होगा ना हमने इतने एक्शन लिए ठीक है बट इलीगल कॉपी जो चीज इलीगल है उसका डेटा ऑथेंटिक डेटा कैसे हो सकता है
नहीं ऑथेंटिक ना हो बोलने लायक पता तो लगे कितना कारोबार चल रहा था ये
50,000 करोड़ से ऊपर के ड्रग्स जो हैं वो सार्वजनिक तौर पर डिस्ट्रॉय किए गए हैं पिछले 3 से 4 वर्षों
3 से 4 वर्ष
50,000 करोड़ से ऊपर के और ये मतलब हम बहुत ऑस्टेंटेशन की करते हैं सभा में हेमंत बिस्वा शर्मा जी आग लगाते हैं वो इलीगल ड्रग्स को to give a message to the youth also that you need to stay away from it because Manipur has been, in fact I'm glad you raised that, Manipur for the last 3 decades has been under the grip of illegal drug trade. In fact that explains why Honorable Home Minister has taken the radical step of announcing that the entire 1300 plus kilometers of border will be completely fenced in the years to come, in the next 3 to 4 years.
बिल्कुल आप सही कह रहे हैं देखो आपने कहा 50,000 करोड़ अभी 3-4 सालों में क्या 50,000 करोड़ क्या रुपये का ये था मामला इसी तरह आज से 30 साल पहले जो भी नॉर्थ ईस्ट के स्टूडेंट नॉर्थ ईस्ट से बाहर पढ़ाई करने आते थे एग्जाम्पल हो गया उनसे यारी दोस्ती इधर प्लेन्स का इसीलिए करता था कि वो चलते क्यूरेस्टेंस आएगा छुट्टियों में जब जाए।
I think this is a generalization which we should avoid. और इसी मानसिकता को ये किताब फाइट कर रही है। जब अगर आप एक जनरलाइजेशन पास करते हैं कि ड्रग्स की वजह से
30 साल पहले जो चल रहा था,
एक 9 साल की बच्ची अपनी मम्मी से बिछड़ चुकी है, जिसने पिंक कलर का स्वेटर और पर्पल कलर के ग्लासेस पहने हुए हैं। कृपया ये बच्ची जिस किसी को भी मिलती है हॉल नंबर 5 के रिसेप्शन पे पहुंचाएं। मारी, जिसकी उम्र 9 वर्ष है, पिंक कलर की स्वेटर और पर्पल कलर के ग्लासेस भी पहने हुए हैं। जिस किसी को भी मिलती है हॉल नंबर 5 के रिसेप्शन पे पहुंचाएं।
We are open to one more question from the house now. And no more rebuttals, please. One more question.
नहीं है ना, उसमें एक्शन नहीं होगा सर। नहीं है ना, ऑटो रेट नहीं है।
Sir, hi, myself Ananya, and I would like to know that is this book written from the perspective of the people who have worked with Narendra Modi, sir?
No, that was not the idea. So these are all people who work extensively in the Northeast, who've steered the change themselves, who are the real stakeholders of what's happening. So we were very conscious of picking people and a diverse range of, writers who could cover various aspects and who dealt with all of this firsthand. So it's like a first-hand account from a diverse set of people.
Yes, I mean we have 23 authors. 23 authors. So if you're asking whether that is written by us or whether the authors, yes, I mean there are 23 different authors who have all contributed. Right, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for being such a patient audience. Also, the
रेखा
audience.
कुमारी जी जहाँ कहीं भी है हॉल नंबर 5 के रिसेप्शन पे जल्द से जल्द आइए। उनकी बच्ची परिमल यहाँ पे ही है। रेखा कुमारी जी
Also, the all the signed copies of
हॉल
the
नंबर
book
5 के रिसेप्शन पे है।
available
आप
at
जहाँ कहीं
Rupa
भी है
Publications.
जल्द से जल्द हॉल नंबर 5 के रिसेप्शन पे आइए।
The author signed copies of the books will be available at Rupa Publications. You can also buy the book and get your copies signed at Hangar 5A.